So are you ready to dive into spiritual abundance? Are you ready to explore living a more abundant life, having a more abundant reality, and matching that desire with the consciousness that naturally brings it in, that is naturally a match for it, that is naturally vibrating at the frequency of abundance. So no matter what it looks like in the world around you, there is a field within you that is magnetic, that is alive, that is awake and conscious. Are you ready? So some of you may feel like you already have a lot of abundance in your life. Like everywhere you look, there's gratitude. Everywhere you look, there's abundance. For you, are you willing, are you ready to explore the possibility that you could be endowed with even more, that you are being called to even more, that you are being called not only to be in that presence of abundance and to receive it, but to become a facilitator of abundance, to take it to the next level, whatever that next level must be. Are you willing to entertain the possibility that there is another level? If you feel like you have some abundance, some stuck places, and you feel like you're kind of in the norm, yeah, there are things that are going well, there are things that I feel like are flourishing, there are things I'm grateful for, and then there's this stuff. Or it works for me, the law, the principle, it works in all these areas. It doesn't work in money. I'm always struggling with money. Or it works in all these areas, but my relationships are always suffering. There's always something. I'm always hurt. There's always forgiveness work. If you are in that space, are you willing to look at the possibility and to dive into it fearlessly, knowing that there is an option for a new way of being, that there is an option that you may have a clean slate, that you may be able to completely start over with a new consciousness that brings forth a new destiny and a new reality? And if you're in a place where life is woe is me all the time, and people say to you, well, make a gratitude list, and you say, I have nothing to be grateful for. I would, but this, but then that, but this, then that. My this is off, my that is off. People this, people that. Are you willing to trade in that life for a new one? Are you willing to entertain the possibility that you may be able to endeavor into the teachings of some spiritual principles? You may be able to explore some spiritual laws that will bring your life beyond the circumstances it now seems subject to. That you may be able, not by manipulating outer circumstances. They may be very valid. They may all be awful. They may all be awful. You may be able to go into a courtroom and say, I tell you, if there's a jury here, there is not one person on that jury that would not say, this is awful. That would not get into this pit with me and sing the Ain't It Awful song. Even with that, are you willing to look into the face of it and say that there is a flow, a spirit, a practice, a principle that I don't know if it works, but I'm willing to suspend my judgment. I am willing to suspend my ideas that I somehow know, because it's been working so well, that I somehow know how to make my life better. Are you willing to suspend all of those ideas and go on a bold adventure, a courageous adventure? If you're willing to take any of those options, say yes. So here we are. A clean slate is offered to us. Do you believe a clean slate's offered to you every day? I do. I believe a clean slate is completely offered to us every single day. We have a fresh opportunity for a new beginning, a new way of being. And this way of being that we're going to dive into this month is spiritual abundance. It's a new way of practicing spiritual law and demonstrating principle. But it does take a willingness to unwind the thinking of the past, to unwind the programming that came before this now moment, and to remove the thinking of the world around you, the world of effects, the world of the outer. This spiritual abundance, you might think, just has to do with money, or it just has to do with this or that. It's not. It's a fullness of being. It's a full rounded experience. A lot of people think abundance classes are all about money, and then they get into them and they go, oh my gosh, I have never had such a rich experience exploring my own divine ideas, exploring my own passions, putting my own life's work into circulation, into practice, than in this class. I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea if I dove into the idea of spiritual abundance, I had no idea what I would be diving into. I didn't know that kind of work would be included. I didn't know those were the kind of spiritual laws I'd be exploring. But spiritual abundance has to do with wellness. It has to do with wealth. It has to do with love. It has to do with purpose, and it has to do with passion. It has to do with our practice. And it comes with a warning. It comes with a warning. Most people don't do this work. Most people don't do this work. Most people spend a lifetime and opt out of this work. At least they don't do it consciously, right? At least they don't do it consciously. We may get it by hard knocks, by difficult experiences, experiences that break our hearts open so that they finally lean into love, an experience that breaks our heart into a space of nothingness, that we all of a sudden have no attachment and we simply become a field of circulation. But to do this work consciously is a magnificent experience. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, and it doesn't allow us to compartmentalize. It doesn't allow us to stay safe, because nothing is out of bounds. Nothing is irrelevant. It allows us to take everything into consideration. Everything that we're doing, all of our thoughts, all of our beliefs, all of our practices. And when we try to engage in this practice of transformation and say, okay, well, I'll put everything on the table, but don't touch this. But I can't circulate in that way, or I can't do that work, or I'm not going to look into that corner. Well, that just doesn't fly in the space of our spiritual work, does it? It really doesn't fly in the space of our transformation work. So nothing is off limits when we do this great work. Our ego is not in charge. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people pretty validly step back from this work. There are certain things that can block the flow of spiritual abundance in our lives, and we pretty much know them. Fear, right? Fear blocks the flow. False evidence appearing real, that which we attach to and we put resistance to because we're afraid of it. That blocks the flow of good in our life. It's threatening work. But it doesn't threaten the self, does it? It doesn't threaten the true self, because that true self doesn't have fear. It simply threatens the ego. It threatens the human condition. Apathy, that's another one that will block the flow. Lethargic, lazy indifference, just going, I don't care, this is just good enough. Ordinary is fine with me. Ordinary is fine. That is mindful work. And then there's blind spots. Blind spots are deep work. They're all the places that we don't go because we can't see them, or we can see them, but we have devised these amazingly intricate systems in our own being for shushing them so that we don't have to deal with them. So one of the ways that can appear is making all my problems someone else's problems. Making the world that is my world a problem because of the way the outer world works. So these blind spots take deep work. We can't pick and choose where we think our awakening is. When we really get on the path and we say yes to practicing spiritual principles and practicing spiritual law, we say yes to our wholeness and a harmony of being. So with this knowing that most people don't do this work, is that okay? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's okay. In Unity, when we talk about tithing, we talk about keeping 90% of our income, of that good that comes to us, which is simply an effect of our talent in circulation, is it not? Is all money effect of your talent and your time, your energy, going out, your gift, who you are going out into the world, whether or not you're sharing in relationships, whether or not you're sharing in tasks, whether or not you're sharing in purpose, whether or not you're sharing in talent. It is simply you in circulation. So this idea that when the circulation comes back to me, 90% of it will stay to sustain me, and 10% will go to where I see spiritual nourishment shared. 10% will be my honorary offering, my sharing to this universe, so that I can be a co-creator, so that I can step into my power as a source magnet, as a sourcer, a creator of energy, of effect. And that practice in unity, in a lot of other places, that practice is a guilt thing. It's about a center needing money, or about we're going to be wrong, or something bad's going to happen if we don't do that. In unity, it's not that. It's about a deep spiritual practice. It's about saying, if there is a spiritual law, let me try it on and see how my life transforms. But it couldn't possibly be about an entity, a person, a place, a thing needing something, because that very idea that something needs it is the idea of lack, which will keep that thing from it. So in unity, it's a personal practice. It's a personal practice. And one of my favorite things to make note of in that personal practice is this. If we don't do that practice versus we do engage that practice, think about the effect that has on our lives. What would we so very quickly be aware of if we were someone that circulated and tithed? If we were that person, what would we be aware of if we came to a standstill? We would be aware that if there is no place we're passionate about our spiritual nourishment, if there's no place that we can identify, this is where my spiritual nourishment is shared, and this is what I'm going to stand into co-creating, we would be aware we don't have spiritual nourishment in our lives. If we have nowhere to give that 10% to, it's a sign that we might not have spiritual nourishment in our lives. And if there's not a place we're passionate enough and committed enough and on fire and awake enough to do that, to do it with power and with presence and with joy, then maybe we need to reevaluate how nourished we are. Because one of the first signs of limiting our good and stepping on that hose is going, I don't have anything that I want to create. I wouldn't even have a place that's valuable enough in my life to give. If that's the truth today, then keep looking. If that's the truth today, then keep looking. Because one of the greatest things about this spiritual practice is that it reminds us we're in the right place at the right time. It reminds us to keep looking, to keep making sure that our spiritual life is rich and fulfilling, that we're on fire, and to keep reminding us that we're here to not only be consumers, but to be creators. The moment we find ourselves in a space where we're simply consumers is the moment we go into the ordinary. The ordinary. For most of us on the spiritual path, we get to a place in this life where not necessarily been there, done that, but to some degree, do you know what I'm talking about? Where anything can come to you in your life and you're like, yeah, okay, it's nice to have money. Okay, it's nice to do this. It's nice to do that. Okay, this is what life is. For my whole life, it's like you can see it from birth through your transition period. Okay, that's life. Most of us on the spiritual path get to the place where we recognize that walking through shopping plazas, buying groceries, doing drop-offs and pickups is not what life is about. That there is something more. And we become committed on another level to see what else is out there, to explore what else is in here, and to live a life beyond human conditions, to live a life beyond the ordinary. There's kind of just one goal I have in my life, like really only one. A lot of people have a lot of goals. And that's good. And I've sometimes felt like I'm wrong or like there's something wrong with me, if I don't have goals. And even in an abundance teaching, you focus a lot on goals and visions, put some frame to it. I'm a little bit of an exception in that area, and that I really have one goal. And my goal is to be what I came here to be, to do what I came here to do, as far as my soul goes, as far as my full being goes. That's it. If I can feel in harmony with that, then I'm at peace. And that is not a small thing, because it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of commitment, and everything gets encompassed into it. Everything gets folded into it, because it's simple. From my highest self, am I here being, doing, showing up according to what I intended to? And when I tap into that, I tap into what my highest self, what I imagine my highest self knows her purpose is, the one that's beyond human form, beyond living day to day, beyond all the little things that tend to take up all of our time. So am I here? Am I living the life I came here to live? There's an author and speaker, Kim Walensky, and she says, the question is not, what if I die tomorrow? The question is, what if I live another 20 or 30 years the way I am? Not what if I die tomorrow. What if I live another 20 or 30 years the way I am? Are we willing to look into the abundant future? Are we willing to look into the abundance of now? One of my favorite ideas of what prosperity is this. It's that in the moment the need arises, the awareness of the source is. In the moment I'm aware of a need or a desire, I am also aware of its fulfillment. That prosperity and abundance is those two things coming together. It's the synchronous relationship. It's that when one happens, the other. Knock and the door opens. Ask, receive. It's that they happen in unity. Isn't that a beautiful definition of abundance? One that goes beyond things, beyond even ideas. But what is your definition of abundance? What does it look like for you? Have you even thought about it? What are the areas of our lives that we think we could expand in abundance? What are the areas, and what have we practiced in the areas that seem to be flowing really well? In Unity's Daily Word Prosperity book, it says this: you are a spiritual being, and your financial prosperity is founded upon spiritual truths. The unlimited and unending supply of divine substance is available to you through the Spirit of God within you, expressing as you. You live in a world of both seen and unseen, the world of thought and the world of expression. The world of thought is the source of the world of expression, and you stand between the two. You stand between the two. Each one of us stands between the world of thought, the world of divine ideas, absolute abundance, and the world of expression, the world of circulation of that abundance. Charles Fillmore says this about prosperity in his book, Prosperity. He says, God does not give us material things, but mind substance. Not money, but ideas. Ideas that set spiritual forces in motion so that things begin to come to us by the application of the law. He goes on to say, the kingdom of the heavens, or the kingdom of God, is within man. It is a kingdom of substance and of mind. This mind, with a capital M, divine mind, this mind interpenetrates our mind. And our mind interpenetrates and pervades our body. Its substance pervades every atom of our body. Are you giving it your attention, or do you still look to outer sources for supply? Are you meditating and praying for an understanding of this omnipresent substance? There is a spiritual teacher that I heard say that scripture, sacred scripture, doesn't say, when it says seek ye first the kingdom and all things will be added unto you. It doesn't say seek some of it, seek part of it. It says seek it, seek the whole thing, seek the kingdom. That's saying seek the consciousness, seek the fullness of the consciousness, not just dabble in it, not just part of it, not just halfway commit, not just commit but I'm not willing to look at my blind spots, not just let me tithe my time and my talent, which are really easy for me, but let me hold on to my treasure and not circulate that at all. Let me choose that to be the one space in my life that I step on the hose and then wonder why it's not circulating. Or let me think, if I circulate my time, that will mean treasure. If I circulate my treasure, that will mean time, whatever it is. We know that we live in a whole universe. It's whole, it's complete. We are not in charge of deciding, right? It's just like Reiki or energy practices, right? When you start doing healing work, you don't get to say, go to my left toe because it doesn't feel good today. You say sweetness of energy, power of force, flow through me, and I trust that you will go to where it's most needed. Go to the healing spot. Even when I went to John of God in Brazil, and even then I went with my little list. They say you have 3 little things that you can work on, and if you don't know John of God, he's a healer that lives in Brazil and does this healing work. You go to a casa and you meet him. And I had my little list of my 3 things, right? And what happened, but when I got up to him, they took my list and they kind of go over it with you, or we had some special people that went over it with us in the beginning. And we get up to the list, and I really wanted my 3 genie wishes, right? And they were at the list, and it was kind of humiliating, but it was kind of let's just focus on this one for you. I only got 1. My 1 was big enough. I was a mess enough in whatever that area was that it was no 3 for you. This is where the energy's going. This is what we're working on, right? Whatever it is your wishes are, oh well. But who are we to know where the work is going to happen, right? Who are we to know where the work is going to happen? I was recently talking to one of my former students, spiritual students, and she was telling me this epiphany that she had about prosperity. And I was so happy that she called me to share this, and so honored, and so reflecting on myself and going, how did that not come to me? And it may not come off right here, but one of the things I've always known about prosperity is that you set it for yourself. You set it for yourself. So I used to teach yoga classes. I'm a certified yoga instructor. And I would teach classes and I would let people know what the value of the class was, but then I would not attach at all. So some people would give way under that value, or maybe even nothing. Some people would give way over that value. And one of my friends that was another spiritual teacher came up to me after some of them, and she said, I don't understand. This is all about claiming our worth. It's really kind of pissing me off that this person, I can tell they're never putting anything in. I don't understand. How are you not claiming your worth and saying, this is what I'm worth? And I explained to her that this is what I know. And I know this beyond knowing. I know this from experience. When you get something from experience, it can't be taught and it can't be taken away. I know that if I am clear on my worth, it will come to me. So whatever I say that is worth, it's not my business whether or not it comes equally distributed through these avenues. I absolutely know a check will come in the mail that will match or exceed that amount. I absolutely know this, right? So I've always been comfortable with that part of the principle and that part of activating the law. She calls me up and said that she was running this campaign for her spiritual center, and it was a capital campaign. And she recognizes, because she knows her truth teachings, she said that I was the spiritual director of this campaign. And as the spiritual director, I did my work before. So she did her work getting ready, her work on prosperity, her work on her consciousness. And she works for a school district. And she knows in her school district that has unions and all of that, right, that her income is set, period. It's pretty much set. You could give all you want, but probably no more money is going to come in, whatever. So how do you have this idea that if I circulate, I give more, I receive more, I activate the flow more? And she said, but she did this spiritual work and she realized that this group, this project will not go beyond her consciousness. So she was ready to elevate it to a whole nother level, to step up the game, right? To play at a larger level. And so she increased her tithe. She increased her tithe, knowing full well that the district and this and that, probably more, wouldn't be coming in. But had no attachment to that. She's certainly open, saying like, that's great if it comes in. Anyway, as she went through initiating this program, she said what she didn't realize was that she was setting a force into motion, and her receiving could come through any of the other avenues of the spiritual practice of abundance. And in fact, she said, I'm at a place where I have a certain amount of vacation, and she has a pretty big job. So she said, having more money really isn't going to do that much for me right now. It's like not something I really need. I have my needs met. I have enough. I have more than enough. And it's not like I could take 10 more vacations because this is my time. But she said, what I realized through this practice is that it came to me in these other ways. And her love language is that language of quality time, loving relationships, and a relationship came into her life during that practice. And other relationships expanded, deepened, elevated. And she realized that the giving in one field, tithing of her time, talent, and treasure, the giving in one field could activate in another, because the energy will go to where it is most needed, where it is wanted, where it is going to unfold. And it was that yoga principle, but taken to a whole nother level. So can we engage in the mystical? That, I think, is the mystical aspect of this work. Can I think that, okay, if I do my forgiveness work, right, maybe it's like, I want more of in my relationships. I want more friendships. I want my family relationships to be better. So I'm going to do my work in that area. That's the area for me that is spiritual abundance. It's all about this. Can we entertain the possibility that when we do the work in that area, maybe we do our forgiveness work, maybe we do the depth work, that there are these multitude of other areas that are going to elevate, activate, and uplift. And that it will be beyond our mind's imagining, right? Beyond what we could control. Like maybe I was going to heal my little toe, but I had something serious going on somewhere else. Do I want to sit there and go to the toe, go to the toe? When the universe says, the toe ain't going to do nothing for you. It may be ugly. It may be really ugly, but you know what? There's other places that you could be floored. There's other places that you will feel loved beyond measure, that you will feel safe beyond human reasoning, that you will feel abundant and prosperous beyond what you think you could create. Are we willing to dive into that adventure? If you are, say yes. Amen. Let's take a couple deep breaths in. I invite you, as it feels right, to know these words with me. I am willing to overcome the human condition. Together, I am willing to overcome the human condition. I am willing to overcome the grip of the ego. I am willing to overcome the grip of the ego. I am willing to demonstrate according to spiritual law. I am willing to demonstrate according to spiritual law. I enter a vibration of abundance. Together, I enter a vibration of abundance. And so it is. Namaste.